Welcome. We'll start with the expected question series, and this series would exclusively focus on the various schemes and projects that have been released by the Government of India. Now, looking on to the previous trends, we'll first have a brief idea about the differences that we are trying to understand for our preparation for prelims and mains. When we are talking about prelims, our sole focus is preparation for objective examination. So when we talk about objective perspective, questions would be like this scheme belongs to which ministry, who implemented this scheme. There can be some confusion in some of the terms that is usually asked. So we'll first focus on that. Then again, as we said, some of the schemes that you would be covering would be very important to understand, and therefore we would be focusing on those schemes in detail. Now coming on to the words that are confusing here. So you have Ujjwala and Ujala scheme that we are talking about. Now when we talk about Ujjwala scheme, that's basically about the LPG subsidy. The next is Ujjwala, that talks about the trafficking. When we talk about Ujala, it's an LED program that we are talking about. So that three becomes confusing sometimes. Then when we talk about Udan scheme, there are three Udan schemes. So one Udan scheme is for the Ude Desh Ka Aam Nagrik, that's the regional connectivity of the various airports. The next Udan scheme that we would be focusing on is the employment in Jammu and Kashmir, and the third scheme that we would be focusing on is giving wings to the girls students, so basically increasing the enrollment of girls students in the engineering courses. So courses mainly pertaining to MHRD are the key focus here. So those are some of the important schemes that we would be covering, and we would be covering the schemes ministry wise. So we'll first start with the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. We'll cover those schemes. As we said, who implemented the schemes, under which ministry that this falls, and every year you have around 2 to 3 questions that are asked on the various schemes in the prelims, and that's a pretty scoring portion that you can definitely get over. You can put in the important topics that you feel should be covered in the classes in the comments box as we go. So we'll definitely cover those in the upcoming lectures. Coming on to the first ministry, that's the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. Now in this ministry, we'll talk about firstly the Rashtriya Vayoshri Yojana, that talks about providing physical aids and assistance for the senior citizens. Now this has been implemented by whom is an important question. So this has been implemented through the Artificial Limb Manufacturing Corporation, which is also known as LMCO. So that's again very important. We have these symbols here as we go in the article, so that becomes important for you, and you have a sign that shows you this is important for your prelims, and you must focus on areas like this. Last year there were questions on Mission Indradhanush and so on. So if you have been regularly covering Yojana, Kurukshetra, these questions should not be a problem. Again, there is one very interesting type of question that is being asked. So let's say under any scheme you have certain components. So let's say you have 4 components or 5 components. So the question will be, which of the following is not a component of a given scheme? So you have to know all the 4. You must be very sure about those 4, and which one is not should be marked. So reading the question again carefully becomes very important. The next is the Sugamya Pustakalaya. Now this is a very interesting and a very important scheme. But basically it's an online library for physically disabled to give assistance to print disabled people. Now it was created under the Divyang, that's the Department for Empowerment of the Persons with Disability, along with the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment and Daisy Forum of India. So now these two is something that you can easily catch up with when you are talking about some scheme like that, but Daisy Forum of India could be something that could be asked in your examination. Now this had been powered by TCS. Again, you have sometimes schemes which are the names of the schemes don't exactly reveal which ministry they would belong to. For example, you have the Manak scheme, you have the Nidhi scheme, Avsar scheme, NatGrid, then you have the Shagun app that has been talked about. So all this if you directly look onto it, you would find it hard to understand and know which ministry they belong to, and therefore they become important for your prelims. While for mains, there would be kind of direct questions on certain major schemes like Smart India, Swachh Bharat. So all those would be a kind of broader perspective where you have to elaborate more. So the focus for prelims would be very extensive, focus for mains would be very intensive. So keep that in mind while preparation. Now the next is National Workshop on Autism Tools. Now this is not that important, but the important point here is what is autism. So autism is basically a developmental disorder, and you must know about this disorder because the question that would be framed would be either on the two tools that we have been talking about, and these two tools talk about the International Clinical Epidemiology Network and the Indian Scale of Assessment of Autism. So those two become very, very important here. The next is Vayoshree Samman. Now these are the national awards for the senior citizens. These are given keeping in mind the various developments and their recognition towards the elderly students. So their status has been changed as of 2013, and they are now considered or upgraded to national awards. You have numerous links or topics that are coming up, so we'll try to definitely cover those. We have request for geography NCERT, we'll be finishing that off very soon. Now coming on to the Ministry of Power, the next is Uday scheme under Ministry of Power. Now this Uday, Udan, you should not get confused with. So make sure you are very clear. Uday talks about Ujjwal Discom Assurance Yojana, that talks about the revival packages for electricity distribution in the various areas. Now what is important here is which state recently joined it. So Mizoram was the 27th state to join it. Now in which state the scheme was first launched. So kind of those questions become very, very important for your examination. The next is Unnat Jyoti by affordable LED for all, that's the Ujala scheme. Now this Ujala scheme has been replacing the Bachat Lamp Yojana. Now which scheme has been replaced is again very, very important. So the scheme that has been replaced is the Bachat Lamp Yojana, and under whom this has been implemented. So it's by the Energy Efficiency Services Limited. So those kind of questions become very, very important. Now some of those have a request about the videos not in sequence in the folder. So you can either go on to the NCERT playlist, so you would have all the NCERTs in sequence, or you can go on to Doorstep where you have those videos in sequence. The next is GARV app. The GARV 2 app was launched to track the household electrification, the rural household electrification, and it has been incorporated at a village-wise level, habitat-wise level with a baseline data for each and every household electrification. Again, you have a citizen engagement window which is known as Samvad, which is aimed to enhance participation of the people that has come up. So this becomes very, very important. So you should not miss this engagement window, that's Samvad. The next is Coal Mitra. Coal Mitra is important because recently you had coal auctions that were in news, and this becomes important mainly for your mains examination. However, here basically it's a web portal to allow flexibility in utilization of the domestic coal. 24/7 power for all, that has been the government target and a joint initiative of a center and state government. Then Deen Dayal Upadhyay Gram Jyoti Yojana, that's again bringing in electricity supply to the rural households by 2022, and the major components. So as I was saying previously, the major components are important, and which of the following is not a component becomes very, very important. So you have strengthening the sub-transmission and the distribution network, the feeder separation, metering, and strengthening the microgrid and the off-grid distribution. So those are important, and which scheme has been replaced to make it the Deen Dayal Upadhyay Gram Jyoti Yojana, that becomes important, and that's Rajiv Gandhi Gramin Vidyutikaran Yojana. So those are the kind of questions you should be very sure of. Ujala we have already talked about how this scheme talks about the LED distribution, and LED are given at a subsidized rate of around 40% under this scheme. Saubhagya scheme recently launched in 2017 September, so it again becomes very, very important. Now Saubhagya scheme talks about the last mile connectivity. So providing electricity connection to each and every household is the main app, and the households have been identified under the socio-economic and the caste census for 2011. The Street Lighting National Program, it was initially started in 2015 and has installed various LED street lights across various states. So which state was the first to adopt this scheme is a kind of important question from this scheme. So Rajasthan was the first state that was adopted this scheme. The next department is Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. Now this is a kind of section which is very important for your mains examination, not so important for your prelims. The basic reason being most of the schemes here you can directly identify from the name what they are meant for. So for prelims usually that cannot be a question. However, we will be covering the key terms here. So the National Skill Development Mission talks about skill development at a various 3-tier level. Then you have Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana. The most important question here is to mobilize the youth. You have the skill training and to make them more employable. So you have similar program, that is apprenticeship promotion scheme. So to promote the training. The next is the Pradhan Mantri Yuva Yojana, that talks about youngsters coming up for entrepreneurship. The next is very important, that is Indian Institute of Skill. Now the question here can be, with which country did we tied up to understand this concept and the idea of skill development and make India the skill capital of India, of the world? So it was basically with the Institute of Technical Education, Singapore. So that is something that is important for your objective perspective here. The next is Pravasi Kaushal Vikas Yojana. Now this scheme is specifically meant for those looking for employment abroad. Now under this scheme, what is important is its implementation, and its implementation was done by the National Skill Development Corporation. So those are the kind of questions. As we move further, you will have a broader picture, and here we have the 3 ministries that we have covered so far and the respective schemes. So this is a kind of summary that would be available on the website. So you can just quickly go on to this page, revise this, and that would be very useful for your examination. The next is under Ministry of Finance, we have the Atal Pension Yojana. Now all these we have covered under the social security schemes that we have already covered in one of the lectures. So social security schemes in India is very important, and specifically, as I said, for your mains. So all the key points here must be very clear. Now this scheme was announced in the budget speech of 15-16. And who all can join it? The NPS member and the people who are not the member of any other social security scheme. The age limit to join is minimum 18 years to 40 years, and after 60 years you would start to get the benefit of that scheme. The income declaration. Now this came up in the budget of 16-17. The idea was to bring in transparency into the system and to remove the kind of black money. So bring in objectivity on the confidentiality of income tax information becomes the key point here. This is very important. Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana. Now what is important here is, under this, with this scheme, where were the proposed changes? So it was proposed in the taxation law, the 2nd Amendment Bill 2016. So where it was proposed, what were the key changes are very important. It focuses on the undisclosed income that should be given clean, and what are the parameters for that have been mentioned here. Now the next is Varisht Pension Bima Yojana. This has been implemented through LIC, that's the Life Insurance Corporation of India, and it aims to provide social security during old age and protect the elderly people above the age of 60 years. The next is Swachh Bharat Kosh. Now this is a setup to attract the corporate social responsibility fund from the various corporate sectors. Now this is an important part of your Swachh Bharat mission. As we said, Swachh Bharat mission is very important for your mains. So you can incorporate sections of Swachh Bharat Kosh, and many of the schemes that we are talking about here should substantiate your answers for your mains. So it's not that while you are preparing for prelims, it's exclusively for the prelims. Definitely it's mainly for the prelims, but you would go ahead and have this as a substantiate, or you would substantiate your answers with these information in your final examination, in your mains. The next is Ministry for Women and Child Development. Now under this you have the various schemes. The first is Swadhar Grih scheme that targets on the women victims. Now the idea is to provide shelter, food, clothing and health. The next is e-drop box, where children can complain. Now this has been hosted where is important. So this has been hosted on the website of National Commission for Protection of Child Rights, NCPCR. So this is again very important, and this has been inspired by the project of Delhi Police, which was known as Operation Nirbheek. The next is Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. There are two aims that it plans to address. The first is the declining child sex ratio, and the next is changing the social mindset of our common people. Now recently this scheme has been expanded to 640 districts across India. POSCO is again important. So e-box has been incorporated in the home page of again the same website, the National Commission for the Protection of Child Rights. Mahila Police Volunteer Initiative started in which two districts is a kind of important question. So it started in Karnal and Mahendragarh districts in Haryana, and Haryana was the first state to adopt this scheme. So you would have one Mahila Police Volunteer in each Gram Panchayat. The next is National Alliance Against Online Child Sexual Abuse and Exploitation. So that's again important, and this is very important not only for your prelims but also for your mains. That's the National Action Plan for Children 2016. Which of the following is not a key priority of the National Action Plan for Children 2016? So you have 4 key priorities here that are very important. So survival, health and nutrition, education and development, and protection and participation. So those become very important here. The next is Pradhan Mantri Matru Vandan Yojana. It's again a centrally sponsored scheme. Now the cost sharing ratio varies. So if it is between center and state, it's in the ratio of 60-40. For the northeastern and the Himalayan states, it's 90-10, and for union territories, it's 100% centrally sponsored. Now how the amount has been given? The amount would be given through a direct benefit transfer to the bank account of the respective person in 3 stages. 1,000 rupees at the time of registration, 2,000 at the time of prenatal checkup, and 3,000 at the time of vaccination of the baby. So these 3 features become very important, and who cannot claim? The people living in urban area cannot claim this subsidy. The next is Sakhi one-stop centers. This was implemented in 2015. The idea was to integrate the various kinds of services that are present, and now you have various Sakhi one-stop centers that are operational across India. Anganwadi services, very important. Now where does Anganwadi come under, or whom does it come under? So it comes under the Integrated Child Development Services scheme. So ICDS is the main scheme under which Anganwadi services come, and it's again centrally sponsored, launched by the Management Information Portal. Asmita Yojana has been rolled out by Maharashtra government, so it's a kind of state government scheme right now, but it's again very important. You have Sukanya Samriddhi account. That's the account opening under the Beti Bachao Beti Padhao Abhiyan, and its tenure is 21 years from the date of opening. Coming on to civil aviation, it's something that's very important. The next is aviation, the civil aviation policy under this. So under civil aviation policy, we aim to provide the benefits to the domestic airline passengers. India is expected to become the 3rd largest civil aviation market by 2022. Of the present ranking of 9th. So that's a big leap India is looking forward for. We are moving a huge way when we are talking about domestic ticketing. So far it was mainly international, and this is the main move under the Make in India initiative. Udan scheme that we already talked about in the beginning. So 3 Udan schemes. So we are talking about right now Ude Desh Ka Aam Nagrik, that's the regional connectivity of the various airports. So developing the regional civil aviation market is the major aspect under this. So under this there is revival of the existing airstrips or the airports. Then we talk about viability gap funding that aims to support the projects under public-private partnership. So that's again very important, and Where does it aim to boost the travel? It aims to boost the travel in Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. So that's again important here. The next is a kind of summary again for the three ministries that we have covered. Coming on to the next set of ministries is the Ministry of Non-Renewable Energy. Under non-renewable, we first talk about the mix of wind-solar hybrid energy. Now this wind-solar hybrid energy is important because we have the goal of 10 gigawatt by 2022. So the goal for the individual non-renewable energy becomes very important, the target goals by 2022. So that could be a kind of direct question. We have covered an exclusive class on the non-renewable sources of energy and the target goal, so you can refer that. This becomes a very important question, Solar Energy Corporation of India. Now this is a company under Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. It basically facilitates implementation of Jawaharlal Nehru Solar Mission, the national solar mission that we talk about, and it's one of the leading public sector companies for the solar segment. The next is various developments under solar parks and the ultra mega solar power projects. So the most important is the Charanga Solar Park in Gujarat, which was the first of its kind on such a huge scale, and then you have numerous solar parks thereafter that have come up. So you have again an idea of establishing solar cities. So the idea under 12th 5-year plan was to establish 60 solar cities where there would be 13 pilot and 5 model cities. So this would be again very important, and whenever you have a question on kind of non-renewable energy and the prospects and the solutions on those, you can incorporate examples and case studies like this in your answer. The next is Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. Again very important, the IT Ministry or the Ministry of Electronics and IT now would have a complete jurisdiction over the Aadhaar, that's the Unique Identification Authority of India, and the National Informatics Center. So those two would be completely under the MeitY, that's the Ministry of Electronics and IT. That's very important and an important question that could be asked. Digital India Awards, what were they previously known as? So they were previously known as the Web Ratna Award. So that's again very important, and they aim to promote innovative e-governance. This has been under the ministry recently Ministry of Health and Family Welfare won gold in this section. The next is Pradhan Mantri Gramin Digital Saksharta Abhiyan. This was launched to make 6 crore rural households digitally literate. So that's again very important. Now what has been important under this is not only the aspect of digital literacy, but how can we relate digital literacy to the cashless economy concept. So that's again very important here. So we will try to understand the idea of digital saksharta and the promotion of a cashless economy. So again we would have the PMG Disha, where this is the PMG Disha where we would talk about the initiative that has been built up under Digital India. The next is Cyber Swachhata Kendra. Now under this we are focusing on two basic aspects. The first is botnet cleansing and malware analysis center. Both of these are very important. We would consider this very clearly. Now this has been operated under which centers is again important. So it is operated by the Indian Computer Emergency Response Team, that is CERT in, and again very important. The next is Ministry of Science and Technology. Now here you would have the major words where many of the students will get confused, and this is the section I was initially talking about. So you would have Manak, Nidhi and all those schemes that will fall under the Ministry of Science and Technology. The first scheme here is Solar Power Tree. Now this is an innovative way to generate electricity. This has been developed by CSIR, and the idea is, the basic key aspect here is we require land to develop a project like this. The next is Manak, as we said, that is Million Augmenting National Aspiration and Knowledge. Now Inspire Awards were renamed as Manak Awards. Manak is a kind of very innovative program that talks about attraction of the candidates towards development of science and technology in the country. So to attract more talent and strengthen and expand the existing science and technology framework. The three components that Manak has are very important. So again, Which of the following is not a component of Manak can be a probable question. So you have scheme for early attraction of talent, scholarship for higher education, and assured opportunity for research careers. Again, the abbreviation of these three are very important. So sometimes there could be a question on acronym. However, that's rarely for UPSC, but definitely for other exams it could be a probability. Now this section on Ministry of Science and Technology and Ministry of HRD are again very important for those preparing for the CBSE NET examination. NIDHI is the next scheme we are talking about, the National Initiative for Development and Harnessing Innovations. So under this, you have this scheme that has been again pioneered by the Department of Science and Technology. It tries to bring in a kind of seamless, innovation-driven entrepreneurial ecosystem that we are trying to sustain. Biotech Kisan is a new program that empowers farmers. So that's again very important. The next is Avsar. Very important. The idea is to bring in more people into research writing and research development. So popular sciences, writing through newspapers, magazines, and promoting more people, more students into writing is very important. So the acronym for it is augmenting writing skills for articulating research. So again, very important Avsar scheme. The next is Distinguished Investigator Award. This is aimed to promote young scientists in India. Now under this you have the reward for the principal investigators. So the best principal investigator would be rewarded, and you are trying to motivate the ongoing principal investigators. So those two are the key ideas under this. The next is Turay Fellowship. So Turay scheme is basically Teacher Associateship for Research Excellence. It again promotes the young scientists and researchers of the country by giving them early recognition so that they could move in the field of science and development, and up to 500 teacher associateships have been given so far. The Overseas Visiting Doctoral Fellowship promotes international cooperation and international mobility of the research students. So again, the summary for the three schemes that we have covered so far. Coming on to Ministry of Home Affairs, which is very important. The next is Operation Muskan. Now this Operation Muskan talks about child trafficking. There was an Operation Muskan version 2, and what was the key aspect of the version 2 was releasing of the child line number 1098. So Operation Muskan and Operation Muskan 2, the difference between the two and the highlights for the two is very important. NAT grid, as I said, from the name it's hard to understand or comprehend which ministry it would belong to, but NAT grid basically is National Intelligence Grid, and this lies under Ministry of Home Affairs. It's a kind of centralized database to stream the sensitive information from 21 sets of data sources, and various 11 agencies do this on a case-to-case basis. Digital Police Portal, again very important. So moving on to the world of cyber security and cyber systems, digital police systems or portal become important. This has been launched under Crime and Criminal Tracking Network and Systems Project, that is CCTNS. That's again very important. So it is a platform for citizens to file online crime complaint that could be done. Anti-narcotics scheme, first launched in 2004. The idea is to assist the various states and prohibit the narcotics in those states. This has been extended for 3 more years recently. Udaan, now this is the other scheme that we are talking about. So it provides employment to the youth of Jammu and Kashmir. Now the key stakeholders are Ministry of Home Affairs, state government and the National Skill Development. So both these ministries are important under this. Ministry of Skill Development as well as the Ministry of Home Affairs. Garib Nawaz Skill Development Centers. Now these ensure the employment for the skill oriented development in the various departments belonging to the minority groups mainly, and this has been done during the meeting of Maulana Azad Education Foundation. So which foundation is related to Garib Nawaz Skill Development Center is again very important. So it is Maulana Azad Education Foundation. Coming on to Ministry of Human Resource Development or HRD, as we said, it's also important for students of NET. We'll be covering this in detail in the expected classes for NET. The first scheme is Swayam, that is steady web of active learning of young aspiring minds. It's basically a kind of massive open online courses that have come under that, and the idea is to achieve three things: achieve access, achieve equity, and achieve quality education. So these three are the basic principles for the education policy that we are talking about. Prashikshak, that's the teachers education portal. So Hindi medium students can get it itself from the name. So Prashikshak means one who is instructing. So it's basically focusing on the teacher education portal for all the district institutes of education and training in India. The Technical Education Quality Improvement Program started in 2003 with the assistance of which body? So it was with the assistance of World Bank. So that's again very important. Now recently we are working on the third phase of this. So that's why it has been in news. The Smart India Hackathon 2017 was done, and it was a 36 hours non-stop digital competition that was released, and therefore it was in news, and it was the first of its kind on a worldwide level if we talk about. Vittiya Saksharta Abhiyan, that is financial literacy. So Vittiya means finance and Saksharta means literacy. So it's financial literacy program, and the idea is to make people aware about the various cashless economic systems that we are working on. So again, Digital India and a kind of cashless move, bringing India into a kind of cleaner economy was the main idea. So Digital India and a kind of demonetization issues could be linked very closely considering these schemes. Shagun, a very important web portal. So Shagun word comes from Sha, that is Shala, that's a school, and Gun means Gunvatta, that's quality. So quality education in the schools, and that's what the web portal is dedicated to. It's a web portal and is a part of Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan. So Shagun is very important. The next is Udan. Now this is the third Udan scheme that we are referring today. So the first one talked about Ude Desh Ka Aam Nagrik, the second one talked about the employment opportunities in Jammu and Kashmir, and this is promoting the girl education in the various fields, and we are talking about the various engineering colleges and the technical institutions where we are focusing on increasing the enrollment of the girls. So 1,000 girls have been selected for the admissions to various schools, colleges under this. Now the next is Diksha portal. Under this, it's important to understand is we are providing a digital platform to the teacher to make their lifestyle more digital and to make their lifestyle more friendly with the systems these days, and it serves as a part of national digital infrastructure for teacher. So that's again very important. The next department that we would be discussing today is Ministry of Tourism. So under Ministry of Tourism, we would be talking about the World Tourism Day, where the scheme of heritage was launched, and that is Apni Dharohar, Apni Pehchan project. So that's again very important. We are trying to take up these projects responsibly and promote sustainable tourism in India. Now these schemes of tourism are important for your mains perspective, where you have a kind of detailed explanation that you have to write on. The next is Swadesh Darshan. So under Swadesh Darshan, we talk about dividing India into various 13 thematic circuits that have been identified for the development, and the idea is to bring in an integrated development of infrastructure, community based development, and pro-poor tourism approach. So those are the key aspects that we are focusing on. It's 100% centrally funded scheme, and for this a national steering committee would also be constituted. The next is Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Under this we have the draft policy 2016 for the forest. This is very important, specifically for the students preparing with agriculture, geography and geology as their optional. Now under this has been prepared by the Bhopal based Indian Institute of Forest Management. So a direct question in any of the exam could be, where is this Indian Institute of Forest Management based? So it's based in Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh. The idea is to propose various kind of cess and taxes, mainly on the environment, and the green tax or the carbon tax. That's the key idea under this. So again we have a summary of the various ministries that you can quickly revise for your end examination. Coming on to the next set that we would be discussing today is Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Now under this, a very important topic is malaria elimination or malaria eradication. This is one of the vector-borne diseases, and we have set up a target to eliminate malaria completely by 2022. Now this is important for your mains perspective, where you can have a question on vector-borne diseases and the various categories under which the regions have been divided. So you have 4 categories. Which categories are most prone and where you have seen no cases of malaria so far. So the various districts have been demarcated, and this has been based on the annual parasite incidence index. That's the total number of positive cases of parasite in a year divided by the total population into 1000. So based on that formula, you have calculated this, and you have a national framework for malaria eradication that aims to achieve a universal region without any kind of universal eradication of malaria. The next is the role of private hospitals to treat the non-communicable diseases in the urban area. Now what is important here is, now the private hospitals would be allowed to bid for 30 years lease over the various district hospital buildings. The land could be with a 50 or up to 100 bed hospitals in the various towns besides the 8 big metropolis or the metropolitans, and it would provide an escrow account. Now what is important here is to understand what is an escrow account. So when we talk about escrow account, it's an account that is being held by a third party, which is basically during the process of transaction between the two parties. So if the two parties are transacting and a third party in between is holding the account, that's what is known as an escrow account, and therefore this is very important. Escrow account itself, the terminology is important here. The next is Pradhan Mantri Swasthya Suraksha Yojana, started in 2003. The idea is to correct the regional imbalances in the availability of the tertiary healthcare facilities, and it has 2 components. The first is to establish various institutions like AIIMS, and next is to upgrade government medical colleges or institutions. The next is the MA scheme, that's Mother's Absolute Affection Program, and again very important because this has been monitored by which organization is important. So it has been monitored by UNICEF, so that's important. Leprosy cases, so again very important. So leprosy eradication has started in the country across 149 districts of the various 19 states. House to house visits have been scheduled for this, and various microplans have been made under this. So when we are talking about the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, there are many schemes which are focusing on individual diseases, as we have seen. So schemes related to malaria eradication, leprosy, so all those become very important. Mission Parivar Vikas, this has been launched on the World Population Day and is a new initiative for family planning in India. The focus is mainly on the areas where you have high fertility rate, and these are the 7 states. So these 7 states become the major focus of Mission Parivar Vikas. The next is Janni Suraksha Yojana. It's 100% centrally sponsored scheme. It was launched in 2005 and it was initially under the name of National Maternity Benefit Scheme, which is now known as Janni Suraksha Scheme. So the name of the scheme has changed, and therefore again a very important question, what was the previous name of this scheme? This talks about safe motherhood interventions. So again very important. The next is Pradhan Mantri Surakshit Matritva Abhiyan. Now this is talking about a fixed day antenatal care on the 9th of every month. So the support system is given in the various private hospitals, or the private sector doctors are also working with that. Swasth Bharat Ek Pahal, that's again an important healthcare initiative that has been launched, and this is a kind of quarterly magazine which would cover the following segments. So women health, child health, elderly health, the various seasonal diseases, good medication, good medical practices, and various home remedies would be the key issues. Initially it would be available both in Hindi and English. No more tension. Now this talks about a kind of stress-free environment. So a stress-free environment is very, very important. Swachh Swasth Sarvastra initiative. Now this is again in collaboration with 3 ministries. So Ministry of Health, Ministry of Drinking Water and Sanitation, and Ministry of Human Resource Development. So which all ministries form part of this initiative is one of the important questions that you should look for. Universal Immunization Program, launched in 1985, it became the part of Child Survival and Safe Motherhood Program in 92. And what are the 11 vaccines which are part of this now? So this list is something that you have to remember. A direct question can be which of the following is not a part of Universal Immunization Vaccination System. The next is Deworming Program. It was launched in 2015 through the various efforts of the Department of School Education and Literacy, and 3 ministries are working together. So Ministry of HRD, Women and Child Development, and Drinking Water and Sanitation. The next is Sathya Resource Kit. So under Sathya Resource Kit, the idea is to help the peer educators to sensitivize the various issues and address the queries of the teenager group. Now, under whom this program has been developed? So it has been developed by United Nations Population Fund and Population Foundation of India. So these 2 organizations again become very, very important. The next is Rashtriya Kishore Swasthya Karyakram, that has been launched in January 2014. The idea is to identify the 6 priority areas. Now what are the 6 priority areas? The list is here. So again, which are the priority areas should be by heart, and you should know those. The intensified Mission Indradhanush, that's a full immunization program. Already you had a question on Mission Indradhanush last year, so it's definitely important. National Health Policy 2017, recently released, so it's again important. The idea here is to move from sick care to wellness. So working on to the wellness issues is the main focus under the National Health Policy, and it proposes improving the quality, reducing the cost, introducing yoga, and more reforms in the medical education. So those are the key objectives, and there are some targets that are to be fulfilled for infant mortality, under 5 mortality, and so on. So the statistics is here, and this is something that you would have to remember and revise. The next is the National Health Protection Scheme, which is recently called as the Ayushman Bharat, again very important, and West Bengal was the first state to adopt it. National Nutrition Mission recently created, focusing on the issues of malnutrition. So both of this become an important question for your prelims as well as mains. Now under Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, that would be the last topic for today, and we would be focusing on the new print media advertisement policy for the Directorate of Advertising and Visual Publicity, and this aims to promote transparent and accountable advertisements in the print media. So this is something that we have covered in the first part of the various schemes. We have many more ministries that still remain, and we would be covering those in the near future. So stay tuned. If you have any doubts, you can definitely ask those. One of the student has a query about India Yearbook. Definitely India Yearbook is something that should be by heart. So the 2018 India Yearbook should be covered comprehensively, given by the Publication Division of India. For more questions, I'll keep answering and you can keep asking. Have a very good day ahead.